your fashion, your clothing for the young people that are listening to this show, like what is that telling people about you and how are you feeling about yourself, about that? Because
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Well, I'm going to say something controversial here.
Please do. This is the place. I speak my mind
So,
all the time.
um, so you have to take this with a grain of salt. But at that age, I think it is okay to dress a little bit to fit in. And I mean that in terms of like you're kind of learning who you are, you're kind of trying on different identities. And, I had, I kind of wanted to wear like the stuff that the cool kids were wearing, or I didn't want to wear like my, stuff from a cheaper store or like a hand me down or whatever. And I think that you don't need to like push yourself to like stand out in a weird way. I just like I think people can calm it down. It's okay to be a teenager and wear, you know, super casual stuff or like weird little trends that you made up. Like that's all fun and it's part of like exploring your identity.
Welcome to It Gets Better From Here podcast, where we help divorced women rediscover their true self, reclaim their power, and rebuild a life even better than before. This week, we are joined by April Brooks Clemmer, a personal stylist, and she's going to help us empower our own unique personal style. I'd love to hear your journey, April, as to how you got to where you are today and if you always wanted to be a personal stylist. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, April.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. And so, gosh, my journey diving right in. I grew up in a really small town, and it was very much, there were a lot of rules around the way that you looked. And I bought completely into that. I was very proud of that, actually. Like, because I wasn't athletically gifted, like I, there were a lot of things I wasn't good at, but I was like, I'm good at this game. So I wanted to play it. And when I went to college, I got a fashion merchandising degree and went on to did some retail, I did some styling in boutiques and that kind of thing. And then I went off and chased my dream of being an actress. And also during that time, I thought, I had moved to LA. I thought I'd love to be a stylist, but we didn't have all the things. Like we couldn't make a podcast at that point. We didn't have Instagram. This was like back in the day. And so I didn't know really how to meet people or get clients and just how to get started. And I was very intimidated, but also I had been conditioned to think a certain way about myself. And so I went through a lot of personal growth. And when I felt that calling again a couple of years ago, that I really wanted to get back to what I loved, I was able to say yes. And it's really been transformative. But I left a lot out, but that's the Cliff's Notes.
That's beautiful, April. And I am very respectful with my guests and however much or however little they want to share about their personal journey because it's personal. But, our community is divorced women and single moms, and they're going through so much with, conditioning and identity. So if there's something that you could share about you, how you overcame yours and found yourself in your calling, that would be a beautiful share if
Oh,
you're open.
yeah. I mean, I'll share something that's pretty light, but I think people maybe it's about a pageant. And so I feel like whenever I tell this story, like it really was like a transformative story, but I feel like if I say the word pageant, it like turns people off. So like, don't run away. But I'm not going to talk
But
about being
you
perfect.
know what, April? The ones that are running away, they're not our audience. So be yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a safe space. So you be you.
Yeah. So like I said, I wasn't very good at sports or anything like that, but so I did beauty pageants and I didn't do like the weird, like little kid pageants or, I didn't do the weird ones. Like I did like Miss Middle School, Miss High School, stuff like that. And so my senior year, I was getting ready to do this pageant, and there were like so many rules about pageants, like back then too, of like, oh, your dress has to match your shoes, and like you need to have a French manicure, and blah blah blah. And one of the rules was that and these are like unspoken rules, but it's just like everybody knows you're not going to win if you don't play by these rules. And so I I hated suits. I'm kind of making friends with them now, but I absolutely hated wearing a suit. I just didn't like how they felt on my body. So I had a suit, for this pageant interview, and just something the day of, I was feeling my senioritis, I was feeling really wild, and I was like, you know what? I'm not wearing a suit. I'm just going to go to this pageant interview however I feel like I want to. And what I feel like wearing is this really pretty blue shift that my mom made me, and a butterfly scarf. So like I put this on, I marched into the interview, and because I, without knowing what I was doing, I had showed up authentically. I wasn't a little puppet talking about, world peace or like world issues that they know you don't really care about as a senior in high school. They asked me what I wanted to do. I was like, you know what? I think I might go to New York and be an actress. They were like, really? Tell us more. And I just had this, it stopped being a pageant interview that I was like, oh my God, like I have to perform. And I just started being myself. And they loved that. And I ended up winning that pageant. But that was also kind of like one of my first forays into like showing up as myself, throwing rules out the window, and just being able to be comfortable in my skin and how that impacted the way that I showed up in the world. So that was like a really big lesson, because back to the conditioning, I have been conditioned to follow the rules. This is how we do this. This is how we do that. And you're not going to win or be successful or fit in or be popular or whatever if you don't do this. And that was, as I hope we're all learning now, that is absolutely not true, and kind of the opposite of what you need to do in your life.
I just want to jump in here real quick to talk about something super near and dear to my heart. When I was going through my divorce, I didn't just feel alone. I spent so much time, money, and I made a ton of mistakes just to try to figure out how I was going to heal and move my life forward. Even with my amazing family and friends, I just couldn't find anyone who truly understood what I was going through as a single mom, as a highly ambitious, driven, and focused divorced woman. If you're feeling this way too, I totally get it, which is exactly why I created the Phoenix Rising Divorce Community. This is an exclusive private online community that is away from social media and is specifically designed for high-performing divorced women who want to connect, to heal, to grow together, all while having the tools and resources to truly take their power back once and for all. If you're ready to stop wasting time, money, resources, and you're tired of doing it alone, and you're finally ready to move your life forward and heal once and for all, this is the community for you. Check the description for all the information. Thank you. I love that, April. I'm just, I'm really happy that you shared that story, because I know it's going to resonate with a lot of our audience, our listeners out there who is struggling to figure out who they are, and they've been conditioned to be a wife. Let's say, for example, they were showing up inauthentically in their marriage, or they don't even know who they are. And right now, by you sharing your story, you're giving them permission to step out and be who they are, and you don't even know how well received that's going to be. Just like you showed up like yourself, and everybody loved it because it was different and unique and a breath of fresh air. So I really applaud you for your courage, and thank you so much for sharing that here today. And that's why I really love your approach when it comes to fashion, because this is not our first rodeo. We've just leveled up in our platform. Now we got on a podcast. Before it was Instagram Live. Holla, right? And so that's why I love how your take on style, and how you taught me so much, just the clothing, it's not just what you're wearing, it's how it makes you feel. And
Hmm.
with that being said, how can divorced women embrace their sense of, like self-expression? How do they, even if they're so lost, they have no clue who they are, they have signed their divorce papers, the ink is dry, but yet they feel stuck, they don't feel like themselves? What advice do you have that can help them, begin to feel like themselves through clothing?
Yeah, I put together a resource for your listeners that's the 21-day style challenge that's full of little things that you can do to find that. But one of the biggest things that you can do when you are feeling lost in your style is very closely tied to your identity. Your clothing actually, not only does it give other people cues on how to perceive you, but it also gives you cues on how to behave. It affects your personality. So it's really important to pay attention to how you're feeling in your clothes. I mean, just like, do I feel good or bad? Do I feel like I want to take up space or do I want to hide? You know, um, and just like your feelings are kind of these little indicators. And just to give this one example, this blew me away. So I just want to share this really quickly. There's a study done where they gave two groups of people a white coat. They told one group of people that it was a doctor's smock or doctor's lab coat, and then they told the other group of people it was a painter's smock. And then they tested them. They studied their behavior and different things. And the people in the doctor's smock behaved more like doctors. Like they had more attention to detail. They felt very responsible. They started behaving in this way that we assume a doctor behaves. And the people in the painter smock, scored, I think, like lower on like a test that they did. But they performed totally differently. And the only difference was what these people believed about the piece of clothing they were wearing. And so I think it's so important when you are in a place in your life where you feel really lost. I think your style is something that can help you get back on track. Like, is your style going to like cure everything? Like, no, but it's a big piece of getting you on the road to bigger things, and it can give you little clues about yourself. So I would one of the things that I tell people to do in the guide is to keep a style diary, and I explain a little bit more about that in there. But I mean, it's super simple. It's not a lot of work, but it's just about kind of paying attention to how you're feeling in your clothes to start to give you clues about, is this something that I am wearing because I have been conditioned that this is what to wear, or is this really who I am?
That's wonderful. And everyone, it's going to be in the show notes. April's contact info, the challenge, the link to that, it's all going to be in the show notes. And I love that because it has so much to do with what I do and my work with my clients, which is mindset. And I love how
Mm-hmm.
you said about their beliefs about themselves, their belief system. For me, belief system, I challenge it because belief system BS,
Yes.
bullshit. So, we gotta flip the script on certain things and gotta start questioning, like, why am I, either feeling this way? Is it my clothing? It's that self exploration that you really have to be curious about. So writing that, you said journal, right? Is it a journal, a
Yeah,
diary?
you can. I just say in there, buy yourself a pretty notebook. Like there's something, there's something about us and beautiful, pretty notebooks that give you a fresh start. So just buy something. You don't have to write a whole page. You can just write a couple sentences. But yeah, just start kind of writing down how you feel about what you're wearing in your clothes. And that gives you a lot of clues as to if this is a quote unquote fit for you.
That's wonderful. And I love me some notebooks. I mean, like, I am
Me too.
literally, oh gosh. Okay. I mean, you and I can share like probably stacks and stacks and stacks of notebooks. So, if there is something different to what you can tell us, like the ones that are really struggling to find their personal style and expressing their authentic self through fashion, what advice that might be a little bit different for the ones that are even feeling stuck?
Hmm.
And they don't know how and where to even start in their journey. Like
Hmm.
you mentioned this tool. Is there something else that we can elaborate on for that?
I um I talk about this in the guide too, but get in your closet and get rid of what I call like your little judgy friends in the corner of your closet. Those are pieces that are like your goal clothes. Like, I will be good enough when I fit back into this. Or maybe you feel like you'll recapture this time in your life if you can wear this dress again. No, no, because you know what those clothes are really doing? First of all, they're slowly going out of style while they hang on the hanger. And life goes by. And second of all, they're giving you the message that you are not good enough in the current version of yourself. And number one, like, you don't want to be stuck chasing this version of yourself that's not who you really are anymore. And you don't want to reinforce a message, especially at this time in your life, that you're not good enough how you are. And that's what's really going on when you're holding on to these clothes. So donate them, sell them on Poshmark, however you need to deal with it. But at least take them out of your closet, take them out of your visual field that you're seeing every day, because that's bringing you down.
That's great. Oh my gosh. And I need to do that for myself. And it's like I have the same go-tos over and over again. And for me, I'm not a shopper. Like I shop out of necessity. And
Mm-hmm.
unless like my kids need something or I need something for whatever occasion, then you can catch me in like athleisure. Or and even that needs to be revamped. But for me it's just but it is important because it's how we feel. And if it's like redundant and stale and something fresh and new needs to be introduced in the closet, that's something to also consider. So that's a good point. Is there like, okay, so if it doesn't fit, get rid of
Mm-hmm.
it. If
Yeah.
you haven't worn it in how long,
You know
would you
what?
would say?
If you bought it 2 weeks ago and you haven't worn it yet and it's not out of season, why haven't you worn it? Like, your clothes you should be excited to wear them. You should be like, oh my God, I can't wait for this to come in the mail. Like, I'm like, with that sound, when they scan the package, that little beep, when I hear that at my door, I'm like a dog. Like, I just like run to the door. I'm like, can't wait to get my package, this thing. Like, you should feel good about your clothes. And to get to the point that I'm talking about, you're probably going to have a lot less clothes than maybe you feel comfortable with. So you don't even have to get rid of them right away. I mean, I did this exercise on myself, and I just put things away and stored them. And I realized, like, why did I even, that would just in my closet confusing me, with all the stuff, when you just narrow it down to what makes you feel really good. Yeah. So, you know what? I was talking so much, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Because I have something to say, so that might help you. It's great that you gave me a great idea about putting them away at least if you're not ready to, make the next move, which is to completely either donate or resell, put them somewhere. And that gave me an idea. You know what? I'm going to take all the stuff that I've been saying that I'm going to donate or resell, and I'm going to put them in just away for now, and then
Yeah.
see how long I can go without it. And if I have gone, I don't know, a month without it, well, that means it's got to go. So I think that's such a good, like tool for to begin, at least for me, because my closet's something that I've been wanting to work on, but it's very low on my scale, but it's important. It's very
Yeah.
important. So I do little at a time. That way I'm not overwhelmed.
Yeah, and just know, like, with that kind of work, like, we tend to avoid it because it's hard and it makes you feel things that you maybe don't want to feel. So, do it in little doses, or if there are people that just want to do it in a whole weekend. Do it however is comfortable for you, but do the work because you are worth it. Like, you clean your house because you deserve to live in a clean house. Like, you cook, for your kids or yourself because you deserve to eat a healthy meal. So your clothes are the same way. Like, you deserve to have, things on your body that make you feel good. And present well to the world, like however you want to be presenting. So you deserve that.
I think that's very important that you pointed that out. Like the ones who are just dragging their feet to doing it, like don't, like me, I always think big picture. Oh, I'm going to do it all. Like that's all I'm going to do for 8 hours today is I'm going to revamp my closet. That is so overwhelming that
Yeah.
I end up not even starting. So I know what I'm going to do after our show. I'm going to literally take quite a bit and just put them in a bag and put them somewhere for now.
Yeah,
But
just set
no,
it
and
aside.
absolutely. And yes, you're right. We do deserve it because it's how we feel about ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
speaking of the mindset and the emotions and showing up in the world, especially as divorced women are transitioning out into finding who they truly are. They're rebuilding, reinventing themselves, rebuilding
Mm-hmm.
their lives, trying to figure out what they like. And this is such a good first step because it's what you wear every single day. Like you're going to feel a certain way with the clothes that you put on. And I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but let's just talk about I mean, I've got some young people also that are listeners, and I've got nieces and nephews, and I mean my kids, like my son, he's 16, and just some of the things that the kids are wearing these days, I'm just like, wow, it's kind of crazy. I know that the times are changing and I sound like my mom back in the day, but it's just like it's just a different time, and I just want to know what your thoughts are on just how your fashion, your clothing for the young people that are listening to this show, like what is that telling people about you, and how are you feeling about yourself, about that? Because
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Well, I'm going to say something controversial here.
Please do. This is the place. I speak my mind
So,
all the time.
um, so you have to take this with a grain of salt. But at that age, I think it is okay to dress a little bit to fit in. And I mean that in terms of like you're kind of learning who you are, you're kind of trying on different identities. And, I had, I kind of wanted to wear like the stuff that the cool kids were wearing, or I didn't want to wear like my, stuff from a cheaper store or like a hand me down or whatever. And I think that you don't need to like push yourself to like comp- stand out in a weird way. I just like, I think people can calm it down. It's okay to be a teenager and wear, you know, super casual stuff or like weird little trends that you made up. Like that's all fun and it's part of like exploring your identity. But I will say, uh, gosh, like I've said this to my family so many times. If I could say one thing to people coming up and beginning their adult lives, in the next few years, dressing is also about respecting other people. And so if you are invited somewhere where there is a dress code, like like a written dress code, like just wear the thing. Like if you go to a funeral, like wear a dark color. If you're going to like a dressy event, just calm it down. Like it also is expressing how you are feeling about the event you're attending. So it's kind of disrespectful if, a bride requests like a certain thing at her wedding and then you show up in like the total opposite. Like that's like not very respectful to her and her event. And so that's what I would say is just and then know that people do pick up cues about you and your personality. So just be thinking about what you want to give off, if you're going to interview for your job or like a college visit. It's clothes can be a tool. So I think it is very smart to learn how to use your clothing as a tool as well as a form of self expression.
That's a really good mindset shift, I should say, for for people to, I mean, young and old, for people to see how their clothes is not just self-expression but how the world perceives them, because truthfully we're human beings, and initially what we do is we judge a book by its cover. It's just what we do. And so it would be so sad if they're not even given an opportunity. That person could be like the greatest person in the world, but because their sense of style doesn't really isn't really acceptable, or it's taboo, or it's whatever it is. Just think about that too. It's not to say that don't be yourself, but just also know what the consequences are, because everything that we do has a consequence, no
Yeah.
matter what it is.
And being yourself, you're not one thing all the time. Sometimes you're a jeans and t-shirt self, and sometimes you're like a dressier self. So like you don't have to do the most extreme thing all the time. Like you're like play with the variations of your personality and yourself.
I really resonate with that. I have a lot of different, I mean, that might make me sound like, I've got split personalities. It's just that I feel like I'm dynamic. And so mostly I love, I'm very casual, like jeans, and I go to the gym, and so I'm really in that kind of outfit most of the time. And so when I do have an occasion, and I do dress for the occasion, people are really surprised, like seeing me in a dress. It's hilarious, and I'm like, surprised, there's that side too. So it could be really fun to just surprise yourself, even like getting dressed up.
Yeah.
It's a great thing, it's exciting. So I love your take on that, April. And as a beauty pageant, what do you say, is that a beauty pageant or beauty pageant contestant, or
Yeah. Yeah. You can do.
okay, so being in that world, there must be a lot of misconceptions that you have seen throughout your your journey, and even now as you're working with clients and just society, period. Can you give us some like debunking the myths and misconceptions? And I'll start with that number, the tag of what size you're supposed to
Oh.
be. And at different stores, they have their own system, and I just
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about what that does to especially women when you're
Mm-hmm.
so caught up in that freaking number of the size. I know I went through that back when I was going through my body dysmorphia, and it's like, okay, one place I'm a size 6, one place I'm a freaking 8, one place I'm like a 5. I mean, it just
Mm-hmm.
does something to you. So if you could speak on that, and give us some like empowering tips as to how to navigate, that would be great.
Yeah. I would say don't beat yourself up for being caught up in a size. I wish we were not that way. And I think we want to work towards not feeling that way. But that's a very deeply ingrained thing in you, is like, I am this size. And you've put a lot of definitions around what different sizes are. So honestly, let's be real. I can say it till I'm blue in the face that it doesn't matter, but it probably does a little bit to you. So what I would first try to do is like reframe that, just like have an affirmation or something when you're going to shopping and you have to try a different size. Just be like, my measurements are my measurements, or like my size doesn't define me, or whatever your hang up is, like just have a little affirmation and just kind of repeat that to yourself when you have those moments of like, oh my God, I'm trying on this size. Um, and then knowing your measurements is really important, and being okay with them. And I also think like knowing a little bit about your body type and what tends to, I know people like hate the word flattering and like what looks good on you, but uh, all that body type stuff is based on having a symmetrical hourglass appearance, which is just what is pleasing to the human eye. That's just what is naturally, that's all it means. And so, you can take with that and do what you will, but a lot of people feel comfortable when they're dressed in ways that kind of balance their proportions out. So knowing a little bit about your body type might help you feel more comfortable.
That's
And because you can try on something that is, it's a, you can be in a store where you're like your perfect size, say it's a 6. And so you can try on this dress in a 6, but it can still look kind of funny or not exactly how you were expecting if it's not cut for your body.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And so I think, your insights as to being prepared, going into the store or what have you, if you are going through something like you're dealing with, your body dysmorphia, let's say for example, or just, not feeling good in your skin at that moment in time. I know when I was going through my divorce, I mean, I lost weight immediately, and
Mm-hmm.
then the unraveling started. And so after maybe about a month or so, I started emotionally eating, and I had gained 28 pounds in 8 months. That is a lot. And for me, I really place a lot of importance on my appearance because I thought that that's what would get my husband back then, yeah, his attention.
Mm-hmm.
I was very unhappy, and I put my happiness in someone else's hands. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that, oh, well, maybe if I, was super fit, then he'll give me more attention. So I did. I was like a skeleton. And that's how my body dysmorphia began, because I never saw myself for how I was, because I gave someone, the keys to my happiness, which
Mm-hmm.
is seeing myself through their lens and that is the wrong way to do it. And that's why I love your approach, April, when it comes to style and fashion, and just being accepting yourself for wherever you're at, whatever that size is,
Mm-hmm.
and to also realize that you're part of this world. So how do you want to be perceived? You could be X, Y, and Z. You could wear, a burlap sack, but is that going to be, accepted by the masses? Be prepared for that kind of feedback. So I just love the insights that you've been giving us here today. And I think it's really going to help a lot of people.
I really hope
Thank you,
so.
April.
Yeah.
And I just want to, before we start wrapping up, always ask my guests a couple questions. And the question is, because I love metaphysics, we're gonna go into a time machine. And so while you're in this time machine, we're gonna go back in time, and I'd love to know, what is the one thing that you would do differently if you could go back?
Um, I would, let's see, what would I do? I would take up more space. I, even now, I'm still learning how to do that because I just practiced making myself small because maybe I wouldn't be noticed. And if I'm not noticed, then no one's going to make fun of me, or I'm not going to be critiqued for doing something wrong. But I was just so afraid of taking up space, of making myself big, of putting myself out there. And it really became a very difficult habit to break. Like even the tone of my voice, for I would speak really softly and kind of high pitched. Probably shouldn't do that on podcasts because I want you guys to understand me. But I would talk in a way that sometimes people were like, "What? Huh?" Like I wasn't even talking loud enough for people to hear me because I was so conditioned that like I didn't have a voice. And I just would go back and say, you know what? Like, talk like, mean what you say. If you're going to say something, say it. Take up your space. It's okay for you to have opinions and comments and partake in conversations. And I would do that.
I think that's great, April. And you're such a beautiful and bright light. And I am so happy that you are challenging those BS belief systems that we were programmed. And there are going to be so many people that you're going to help, that is going to resonate with your story. And so the more you practice, like you said, just playing big and doing the opposite of what you were taught to do, the more people are going to benefit. So I'm so grateful for you to share this platform with me and to share your story, because these are real struggles that we all have been through. And we just never know who it's going to help. That's why, that's the beautiful thing about, like we had talked about in our pre-talk, like me launching this podcast when I wasn't even ready, but my intuition said this was the time. And if my goal is not if because my goal is to impact the lives of 1 million divorced women and single moms, I mean, shit, I better get started. um, so okay, let's stay in that time machine, and now let's go back to a time where, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would that be?
This is a season. Whatever you're in right now, whatever year, decade, wherever we go back, I would tell myself, no matter what, like, you're in a season. So if it's hard, just hang out, keep pushing, because things always are changing. And if it's great, like, cherish it, like, taste it, like, really capture this moment and make the most of it, because there will be hard times coming. And life is just, it's peaks and valleys. No matter what our circumstances are, we all have different ones. But I had such this view of, like, whatever my circumstances were, we're going to be this way forever. And it was very angsty, and the highs are very high, which made the lows very low. So I would just go back, and this is something I realized when I had my daughter. After I looked back a few months, I was like, that was hard, but it only lasted a couple months. And then now this part was really cool, but it's like it's going away and she doesn't do that anymore. And so, yeah, I think that that's a really great way to live your life, is just stay on an even keel and know that, and expect that things are going to change for good
That's
and for
beautiful.
bad. Nothing's forever.
That's very, very beautiful. And that's very fitting for our audience because of the, season that they're in, which is, my gosh, I know you have gone through probably many forms of reinvention and self discovery as you're breaking through all of the things that you've had to achieve and overcome in your life to get to this point. So that is just the perfect way to close our episode, that way that people can just be left with the fact that it's going to get better, it's going to change, this is temporary. It might not seem like it at this moment in time with everything that's going on, which seems like and feels like chaos, but take it from April and I, this is nothing but a season.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll look back and be like, wow, I wish I didn't stay in that for as long as I did, because it that too passed.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, April, I want to thank you for being here. And I'm so grateful for you. And thank you for sharing yourself so generously and your knowledge with our community today.
Oh, thank you. I'm really honored to be here and be able to talk to everyone. And yeah, this is really great.
That's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed all of the value that April, who's super amazing, shared with us today. Please remember what she said, that you can embrace who you are authentically through your fashion, through your clothing. Make sure you take a look at your closet and get rid of what is no longer serving you and what's been taking up space, like I'll be doing very, very shortly. And also, if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. Thank you.